MLS has grown exponentially over the past 30 years. The facilities are now remarkable, spectacular, among the best in the world. Attendance is actually great, also among the best leagues in the world. And Messi, one of the best players to ever play the game, has joined MLS. However, Major League Soccer still struggles with its ratings, and the perception of the league itself is also something that they struggle to change. And if you want to use the national team as a metric to judge youth development, it's fair to say that it hasn't really improved that much over the past 20 years. I mean, think about it this way. If we remove all of the non-MLS developed players from the national team, such as Christian Pulisic, Serginho Dest, Anthony Robinson, Balogun, Musa, Johnny, and a few others, is the US men's national team any better than they were 20 years ago? Let's say compared to the 2002 World Cup? The answer to that is no. And as you can see, today we're going to be talking a lot, about MLS. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And today we have part one of a two-part interview with Eric Wynalda, former USMNT player, I would say US men's national team legend. And the goal here is to start a conversation. There are much smarter people with far more power within MLS and US soccer that can work to improve the game in this country. Actually, maybe they're not that smart. I might be giving them too much credit. And listen, if you love MLS, that's fine. If you hate MLS, that's also fine. Someone complimenting or criticizing the league shouldn't offend you. Now listen, someone criticizing also shouldn't really change the way you feel about it. If you like it, you like it. But most are not willing to have these conversations. And let me ask you this. If you're not allowed to criticize MLS, everyone gets sensitive when you talk about it, how is this league going to grow in popularity? How is this league going to improve? The product is not made just for the ones that enjoy MLS now. They want to get new fans. If you want to get new fans, you got to listen to what people like and what people hate. I'm not saying to adapt to every single critic out there, because some of the criticism is unfair and some of the criticism is stupid. But these conversations are important if you want the league to grow and if you want the league to get better. And for this episode, we're going to be talking about promotion, relegation, the quality of the product, youth development, and much more with Eric. Now, whether you like Eric or hate him, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And if you want to watch more of his content, go check him out at FuboTV with his show, Unleashed. Now, make sure to drop a like in this video, as I will not be requesting during the interview. So make sure to do that right now. Just hit the like button right now. And this video is brought to you by So Rare, but more on that later. Roll the intro. Okay, it's been a while. I think the last time I had you here, we still had Berhalter in charge. It definitely had still Greg Berhalter in charge. It's been a while. Eric, welcome back.
Good to see you, my man. Good to see you.
On top of all of that, ever since you came here, you started a new show. You have Unleashed that we can see there in the background with FuboTV. That's been doing very well. And a lot of the topics we're going to talk about today are things that you have touched upon in many different occasions. And for this specific episode, I want to talk about one of your favorite topics, MLS.
Okay.
That's
Making this salary. Wait, no, that's no longer the case. No, we go ahead.
Well, good. I would not want that here.
No, so, it used to be MLS stood for making less salary. Now it's we got to come up with another. Well, it started off more or less Sunil. That was the joke. Who was our president, Sunil Gulati. And then the one thing it is not is might be leaving soon. So that's good. That's all good news.
So why don't we start with a question that I also asked a former teammate of yours, Alexi Lalas. I had him on 2 weeks ago, something like that, when we were recording this, or a week or two ago. And I started off the episode by asking him a very simple, straightforward question. I can talk about what he said. The episode's also out. People can check that out. And people know Alexi's opinion on this. And I asked him, why does a good portion of U.S. soccer fans, you can even say Americans, reject Major League Soccer? The reason I asked that is because if you go to different countries, go to Brazil, the Premier League is super popular. The Champions League is popular, but the domestic league is number one. It doesn't matter. Mexico, La Liga is popular, but Liga MX is number one. In the US, MLS, as it stands, it's behind the Premier League, definitely behind the Champions League, behind Liga MX. So you do have an issue where Americans or US soccer fans are rejecting the league. My question to you is that true, and why?
Well, I mean, we have what we shouldn't look at it in some sort of fragmentation, right? I mean, there is always that argument that people that are watching the EPL or La Liga or even Liga MX, MX or whatever your league of choice is, which varies because America is very different. We just are. We have so many different nationalities living here. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to say, "Oh, I watch the Portuguese league." Okay, maybe like 0.5% of the population or of soccer people watch that, but that's your prerogative. You can do that. Um, and I do think, and as you said, in Brazil, it is the way it is. I am more familiar with how it is in Germany. And I think that that's just because I played there for 5 years, understand the language, and it makes sense to me. But I understand the inner workings and the mechanisms of how the German Bundesliga works and the second division, Oberliga, third all the way down to Regionalliga, which is the way it works with a real pyramid. Look, I think there's a couple of things going on. I do think that the American fan base is far more intelligent than we're giving them credit. Um, what is difficult, and this needs to be said, is if you are actually somebody who pays attention to the EPL or La Liga, and like myself, I mean, not by design, but by the nature of this job, I want to know what's going on in all the leagues, from Serie A to La Liga to the Bundesliga. I'm paying attention to almost everything.
Hey, it's me interrupting myself, so we can put a quick word from the sponsor of this video, So Rare, because Tactical Manager has to pay his rent. We'll be back in 60 seconds. Do you collect sports cards? Do you play fantasy sports? Yes, no, maybe? If you said yes to any of that, I got something for you. And if you said no, you might still want to stick around. Tactical Manager TV is partnering up with So Rare with a special offer. The link will be in the description. In So Rare, you can collect your own virtual cards of your favorite players. And then you may be asking, why would I want to collect virtual cards? Well, you can line them up on 5-a-side games every single week. And if your players perform in real life, you can win actual money, signed jerseys, game tickets, or even more cards to improve your own club. And you can also get unique experiences like a friend of the channel, Fiago, that got to meet Zinedine Zidane. You know what's also cool? They also have the NBA and Major League Baseball. I'm mainly gonna just stick to soccer, but you do you. What I really like about SoRare before we even partnered with them is that they're unlike other fantasy games where you have to pay per play. In SoRare, you pay to get the players you want permanently as cards. And then you can play multiple times using those same cards, at least until the player retires, win rewards if your players perform in real life. You can also buy undervalued player cards for cheap, then hold, use them in the future when they improve or develop, and then you can even sell that card when its value goes up for better ones. Or just keep the money yourself. And if you use the link in the description of this video, you will get $50 in credit after buying your first 5 cards through auctions or instant buy at any prices. Play with responsibility. All right, enjoy.
You watch that, right? And you see those games, and then, and it's unfortunate for MLS because if you watch those games in the morning the way I do, and then you turn on the MLS game, which comes on later in the day, there's just night and day, man. The level and of what the games actually look like, especially at the start of the season, was really poor, very poor. The pace of the game, the mistakes that were made. Tactically, I mean, this is your area, right? But when you look at this and you try to tactically analyze some of these games, there's no comparison. So there's a bit of arrogance that comes along with this when you say, well, my team is Man United, and I watch them, as bad as they are, it's still better than this. And it's a little unfair because the mechanisms that would make MLS far more compelling do not exist. We have a league where we have coaches who have haven't won a game in their first 10. They're still employed. They're still coming to those press conferences and making it. I'm not picking on Greg Vanney right now, but damn it, if he was anywhere else in the world, there's no way he is holding down.
You want to pick on Greg Berhalter? Maybe he lost 7-2 recently.
I watched that game, and I don't like to pick. I mean, look, he's actually done a fairly good job. I would argue that Greg Berhalter is right where he should be. That's a really good spot for him. That is his level, if you will. And what he's been able to do with Chicago in a very short span of time was to turn them into a competitive team. He just ran into the guy that sat next to him for 3 years. And that's the problem when you only do pattern play.
I feel bad for the guy though for sitting next to him for 3 years. Eric,
Well, I mean, I know you don't like Greg, but Greg has a way of doing things, and he is a coach who believes in his methodology. He will die on that sword, and he thinks that that is the end all be all way of changing the game and all that bullshit. That there was nothing that was off-putting after the third time he saw it.
I have
So
a question from what you said, which is interesting. You are right. If you watch the Premier League games in the morning, or Bundesliga, or La Liga, or Serie A, and then you watch MLS, usually the games are all on Saturday, and then Saturday night you're watching MLS. There's a noticeable difference in quality of play, intensity. Intensity is very noticeable
intensity
too.
is the number one thing,
But
and
here's
also just what about the fans? I mean, like this just. I mean, come on. I mean, I just watched things explode down in Argentina because you couldn't even see 10 feet because they brought so many flares into there. And there's so much more passion
but Eric,
and so much
why
more
is it?
responsibility.
But why is it that, so for example, I mentioned Brazilian League and Mexican League to open the episode. These leagues are also worse quality than Premier League. I watched them both. The Premier League is a higher level. It's noticeable. Yet the domestic fans still choose the domestic league. So it seems like MLS has even bigger issues than just the product itself and quality of play, doesn't it?
But yeah, I mean, because if let's say we're watching Mexico, right? And I still pay attention to Mexico. I played in Leon through my years in the 90s. Even some of the guys that I played against are still brilliant friends of mine. I mean, the Jorge Camposes of the world, Claudio Suarez, Ramon Ramirez, Matador, and not so much Hermosillo. He and I never really got along, but Garcia Aspe, uh, Del Olmo. I mean, all of these guys we were fierce competitors. We wanted to, be the dominant country in our region. And what I always thought was amazing back then, and was such a great service to the Mexican national team, is that they all stayed home. They stayed in their domestic league. There was no reason for them to go. I mean, Jimenez and guys like that who have gone to the EPL to cash in on a big payday and play at a higher level. All of that stuff is relevant, but at the same time, I would argue that the Mexican team many years ago was far better because of the realities of the strength of Liga MX. And it was something that we always kind of like, almost in a crazy way, we were jealous of, because as Americans, our league was just starting right in 96. If you'd played in like what was called the APSL prior to that, from like the late 80s to the early 90s, which was a really good league. I mean, to a certain extent, we had really good players. No one's getting paid anything. But the level of those games, I would argue that the San Francisco Bay Blackhawks of 1991 and 2 would be just fine in Major League Soccer even today. And I know I'm right. I don't need somebody who thinks they know to try and convince me otherwise. I know the level and I know I'm right. What that means is that our level hasn't come, hasn't gone, to the next level, or it hasn't gone a long ways in regards to the intensity. And the only reason for that is, if you watch Mexico, those rivalries are real. They're real. And there's tradition involved, and there's responsibility and accountability. And, coaches get fired pretty quick down there in Mexico if they lose the wrong game. So I think all those pressures make the soccer better. They just do. Now, if trying to manufacture a Rocky Mountain Cup, I mean, come on, what the hell is that? I mean, it's like that's really stupid. And these things don't happen unless, or the games don't get real unless it's compelling and there's a reason for it to be real. And as long as I know, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but as long as we still don't have what we would call promotion and relegation, there's so many people that have this like ignorance towards it and they don't understand it. But it's a reason why I'm watching the German Bundesliga and the German second division, because I want to see who's coming up. I want to see who's going down. I know what that feels like. I got relegated and promoted, but I know exactly what those players are going through and what those fans and supporters are going through. And it is far better than what we are trying to create here. It's just the levels are just so far apart. And our American folk, I mean, we're talking about two people, right? We're talking about the MLS people who are like, this is great. I love it. I'll go to every game because I love my team. But that's kind of like saying, I really like a rock band who's not that good, but you just like them and you're going to go to the concert anyway. And somebody who actually knows what music's supposed to sound like shows up and goes, this is terrible music. You go, oh, come on, man. I love it. This is great. No, it's not. It's really bad. This is that guitar stinks. And this, you're forgiving the lead singer for missing the notes because that's really not good. And so
it's like me.
half of us are saying this isn't good enough, and the other ones are saying, "Oh, this is great." So it's going to be a constant battle until we make it real.
Yeah, it's kind of like when I talked about once I complimented Bono as a singer, and then everyone said he sucked. But I'm like, hey, sometimes one person likes him, everyone else hates the guy.
There it is. This is music. I mean, wait till we get into the youth stuff. We got MLS Next now saying that the results don't matter. It doesn't matter with
It's I actually
holy cow. I mean, that is
actually you're getting a bit ahead of yourself.
At the top, it sucks at the top because the people even now are I mean, even the people who are running these programs for our kids, and I've been a part of it. I walked away from it. But the kids that are now experiencing football through the people that only know MLS. If anybody in their right mind thinks that that's progress, then you are a flippin', not to use your name, and this idiot. That is not progress. It's not going to get better.
So, Eric, that's actually a good moment for us to transition into a new topic within MLS. We talked about how a good portion of U.S. soccer fans don't really enjoy MLS, so they go watch European leagues from other countries for multiple reasons. Quality of play plays a role. I think MLS has also failed to really create a culture within of these fans, like wanting to, like you kind of said about like trying to force a rivalry, things like it's not going to happen. It just kind of happens organically, and it makes it feel corporate at times. So there are multiple reasons for that. I'm actually interested in what the viewers have to say in the comment section too about this topic, even though they've debated it a lot when I had Alexi on already. And we talked about youth development. I think youth development, I can bring up a question for you that I actually brought up to another former teammate of yours, Tab Ramos. And Tab actually gave a very funny answer, and I want to see if you can beat his response to it.
Right.
So, Eric, right now, I'm going to get the current U.S. men's national team, okay? And I'm going to remove every single player that was not developed in Major League Soccer. So I remove Christian Pulisic. I remove Musa, Dest, A-Rob, Johnny Cardoso, Balogun, right? Remove all these players that were not developed in Major League Soccer. These are some pretty heavy names for the current roster that I just gave you, and there's a few others that we could include. If I remove all of those names, are the players that remain in the national team, is our team better than 20 years ago? Yes or no?
No, not even close.
So how far would you have to go? Because Tab said you'd have to go back to 1990.
Yeah, no, I think 1990 is a good starting point, and I think he's right. The way that all worked for us, I became a part of the team in '89. I dropped out of college to get into a World Cup team. That process started for me down in San Diego, January of 1990. So I never played in a qualifier to qualify the World Cup team for the U.S., but I did make the roster that played in Italy. Didn't go very well because I played out of position and got red carded. A different story. But if you look at that group, that was just the best we could do at the time of a bunch of college kids. But the way that it all kind of ended for us, there were guys on that team, not to call these guys out, but the Michael Windishmans of the world, the Desmond Armstrongs of the world, John Stolmeyer. There was a bunch of guys who that was the pinnacle of their existence. They wanted to go to a World Cup. That's it. Paul Crumpy. That was it. That was like, we made it to a World Cup. I'm done. I'm going to retire at 27. Right. But then there was a collection of us, John Harkes, Tab Ramos, myself, Marcelo Balboa, who wanted more. And this was our we had our eyes opened to the world of football, and we wanted so much more. Obviously, Tab goes to Betis. John goes to Sheffield Wednesday, wins an FA Cup, scores the goal of the year. It was not called the EPL at that point, but he scored I think it was the goal of the year. Just kind of opened a lot of doors for a lot of Americans. Like, who the hell is this kid? Yeah, okay, sometimes he has an accent and his parents are Scottish, but still, which made things really easy for him to get a work permit in England. But the bottom line was we started moving over to Europe. I went to Germany. I had an unbelievable start in the Bundesliga. I think I scored 11 goals in my first 9 games, and that was all competitions. I think I had 8 or 9 in the first 10 league games. So there was a question of what are these guys all about? We didn't even have Ernie Stewart yet, so Ernie hadn't come into our team. Guys like Tom Dooley hadn't even thought about it being a part of our team until he saw that, oh, I think this has some potential, and he wanted to be a part of it. I think he joined us in 1992. But we recognized that we did not have the environments that we could get better. Obviously, we didn't have a league in Major League Soccer, but just to say that as a blanket statement, as if having your own league was going to solve the problem, is just completely ignorant.
And Eric,
That's the stupidest thing anybody can ever think. Oh, no, you're playing in league play. Obviously, you must be a better pro. If the soccer isn't good enough and the environments aren't good enough, and the pressure and all of those things that I was introduced to in Germany aren't there, you're not going to get better. You're just going to get stuck, stagnant in mediocrity. And that's kind of what happens when you only put the bar this high and you say this is the standard. I mean, I'm not going to pick on a guy, but we celebrate Darlington Nagbe like he's the second coming. And that kid would have never made it in Europe.
Okay, so Eric, from here, this is what I wanted to say. The reason I asked this question of the current team without the MLS players, you kind of dove into it already, is that even though MLS exists, there's a pathway to become a professional player. There's better facilities. Everything is better, right? In theory, it's better. It doesn't seem like the youth development went up with it, right? It seems like the players that MLS specifically is developing. The reason I'm picking on Major League Soccer is because that's the Division One of this country. And if you go to most countries, their best players or their national team players mainly come from the first division. So I'm going to pick on MLS. I'm not saying USL is doing a tremendous job. I'm just saying MLS is the one we're going to hold to a higher standard. So right now, the national team should be able to obliterate, you should be able to look at the team and say, remove the non-MLS players, the non-MLS developed players, and you would say, oh, it would destroy our team from 20 years ago.
Did you suggest that, or did Tab? Because that sounds like a Tabism, if you will. I mean, that would be the way his mind thinks.
I think it was me with him. I agreed with him. I think maybe he said it first. Maybe I said it first. I mean, I entirely agree with him. I started the question with Tab.
All right, makes sense, because Tab looks at things in a. I think when you really understand how Tab works, and if you ever had the honor of playing with him, you know for sure why we hold him in such a high regard. He was just a phenomenal player. I mean, I think some of his frustrations with us at times, with his teammates, were just him holding us to a higher standard. I mean, I could even argue that under all those circumstances, in the environments that we were able to facilitate, Tab made us better because of his demanding sense of what was all about. And he made sure that all of us really understood that we're playing for the U.S. national team. Regardless of how good we think we are, we have a responsibility, not just to ourselves and to the current country and fan support, but to future generations who will either look back at us and not understand our legacy, or maybe they'll be able to say, hey, those guys really worked their asses off to pave the way for the rest of us. I think we're all in that boat now, where the greatest mistake that Major League Soccer has made is just throwing away all of the experiences that they had at their disposal to make sure that they started their own new era without Tab Ramos, without me, without John Harkes, without Tom Dooley, without people who really could have had some insight and made things better. And I think you want to talk about the youth, which is probably, to me, the biggest problem, hands down. There's nothing close. I watched an interview with Tim Weah the other day, and he told us how great he is and how great the team is and how great these next generation of players are gonna be. What the fuck is he talking about? Honestly, I mean, you don't ever presume to be great. You aspire to greatness. You don't ever just come right out and say you're great. It's just like an unknown or an unwritten rule. And the second that you do it, it's very telling. It's very telling to the rest of us of what you think of yourself and what you think of this team. And that is not the way you approach a World Cup. And it's how you get beat when you think you've got it or you thought you had it, and the opposition is more prepared or more motivated than you are, and they end up beating you on one of those two accounts. I was really disappointed with that, especially since he was talking about the kids today, and the kids and the upcoming talent that we have with our youth, our youth setup, which is absolutely dismal. And and if you ever notice, this is the way it works. We will be pretty good until we get to about 16, 17 years old. We'll be very competitive. And then it starts to drop off. Tab lived it. Tab lived this in the sense that he didn't have access to players who were 18, 19, playing in real professional environments. He had kids in college or kids who are just trying to figure it out, or even a 17, 18-year-old kid who had decided to be a part of a professional environment here in the United States that just was subpar. And then we were wondering why these kids aren't getting better or being able to essentially play the game at a high level or understand it or understand the responsibilities, the pressures, the accountability, the stresses that go with it. I mean, we are still to this day, oh, it's okay, we'll get them next time. That's the attitude that our youth has. And it's
And Eric, on top of that, like with the United States, what we want is when we're looking at the youth development and even the current national team, we're looking at it and saying, we want to be the best in the world in this sport. We want to be able to compete with the best in the world. We want to be fighting for like legitimate trophies outside of CONCACAF. And when you look at the current team, we don't seem to be anywhere near it. And when you look at even the youth teams, we're like, yeah, there's some talent here and there, but
what happens, right? My point is right at that time when you're 17 years old and it's time to play with men and it's time to be a part of a real environment. Very few of us got that or afforded that opportunity. Christian Pulisic certainly had somebody looking over him in Jurgen Klopp, who basically integrated him into this setup when he was 15. What's an amazing advantage that he had over everybody. Because if you're 16, 17.
Wait, you meant Klopp with Dortmund. I thought you were talking about Jurgen Klinsmann with the US.
No, Klopp way back at Dortmund.
You're talking about Klopp, yes.
Klopp, put his arm around him and said, we're going to give. I remember when it happened, I had to report it. I was working for Fox, and we were in a room with a bunch of, the Rob Stones and Alexis and Warren Bartons of the world. And the news came in. I think Grant Wall, the late Grant Wall, came in and reported. Apologize. It's that time of year. I got allergies, but he came in and he reported to us that it looks like Christian Pulisic will get a chance to play in the upcoming matches for Borussia Dortmund. And I remember in the room, I said, well, that's cool because they won't just make it one game. They'll make it probably a game of 5-set, where they'll basically tell him, this isn't a scenario where you train for a week with the first team and we'll give you a shot. And then if you fail, that's it. Shot's gone. Germans don't do that. The Germans prepare you adequately with all the things that, whether that's physical, the mental side, the tactical side, everything you're prepared to do. In the event that you don't have a particularly great game and that first time, that is not the end of the story. They will give you 3-4 more games to acclimate. And that's exactly what happened. I think on game 3, Christian Pulisic scored. And that was the beginning of his story because they afforded him the time to acclimate, to be ready for the environment, to go up against, real opposition and to actually excel. And that's just something we don't do. We'll and this, I've been through it, man. I think I could tell you stories and it just makes my blood boil. At some of the frauds.
I have a question. I'm trying to understand because what I'm trying to understand is MLS definitely does give opportunity to young players. I just don't think they're good enough. A lot of them.
No, but the environments aren't there. Like, what did you lose?
Oh, you mean the pressure? That's what you're talking about. The pressure.
These guys, if they lose a game in Major League Soccer, walk off the field, shake their hands. Everybody covers their mouth when they talk to their buddy. And then they get on the bus and they go home or they go back to the hotel or whatever. And they just go out to dinner. And I mean, you try that in Europe. Yeah. Good luck with that. Good luck. You have a really poor performance. And the other part about it, and it's something that I experienced in Germany, the coach knows this, right? Especially after a good or a bad performance. It actually doesn't matter. I mean, most of the coaches that I had, Klaus Toppmüller was in my opinion, a genius. His son is now coaching at Eintracht Frankfurt, following in his footsteps. He's really good. But if you lose, right, on a Saturday, the team is expected to report for recovery the next morning, very early. Like you get there at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. You'll start your recovery if you played over 60 minutes, right? And you'll be jogging around and doing some stretching and whatnot. The rest of the guys that didn't play are kicking the shit out of each other 50 feet from you. And the coach is there watching these guys who are pissed off that they didn't get to play. They are pissed off that they lost their money. They lost what's called an Auflaufprämie, which is usually, back then, you can imagine what it is now. It was like $5,000 to start. You got $5,000 to make the starting lineup. You got an additional, $5,000 if you won. So it's a $10,000 loss if you don't participate. You don't think those guys want to play? You don't think those guys want to like prove to the manager that the guy that's over there stretching, that played 65 minutes and was absolute shit, that he doesn't deserve to take that guy's place next week? You don't think he's going to kick you the first shot he gets on Wednesday? It's a professional courtesy, but that guy's coming after me and I know it, and I better freaking jump because he wants to play. You show me one environment in Major League Soccer that acts like that, and you can call me a liar.
Well, just to reinforce your point, I get what you're saying. Christian Pulisic, for example, he's been very good for Milan. We agree on that? Yeah.
Yeah, but how good has Milan been? I mean, this is the worst season.
No. Just so I can make the point, he's been good for Milan.
Very good.
If he stinks it up for Milan for 5 to 6 games in a row, they'll bench him. Now, if you go to MLS, Christian Pulisic can be crap for 4 to 5 months. They ain't benching a designated player called Christian Pulisic. They're not benching him. He'll start regardless of how he's playing. Now, with Milan, he can drop 50 goal contributions in 2 seasons, start next season, not playing well, you're going to the bench right now. I mean, they bench Rafael Leão. Leão, and they benched him when he was playing poorly. If Rafael Leão was in MLS as a DP, he can stink it up. He's starting. It doesn't matter what happens, right? I mean, you have Luis Suarez right now trying to walk, and he's going to continue to start for Inter Milan. The dude can't walk anymore. Like, it's struggling to walk.
I don't know how he's doing it, man. Honestly,
well, he's not.
I was throwing dirt on his grave 6 months ago. Kudos to him. He must be in a lot of pain. It's obvious he's in a lot of pain. But I mean, I don't. I mean, it was a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. I mean, you couldn't win this one. I mean, if Messi came to this league and sucked and couldn't score and didn't play well, then everybody would say, "Oh, he's over it. He's done." Like the MLS wouldn't get credit for being a strong league. But if Messi came here and basically walked all over everybody like he did in the first couple of months, and even every once in a while now, then everybody says, "Oh, the level's not good enough." So MLS, by signing Messi, it was a double-edged sword. It was, it's great. We got the greatest player of all time that plays in this league. He's not the greatest player of all time.
Yeah, the second.
Okay, careful. But we can have that argument all day. But the truth is, he's not the greatest player in the world right now. He's nowhere near at the same level that he was at. But Major League Soccer is basically touting him as this, this is the greatest event. I mean, for example, I was up in San Jose in April because we had to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the first game. And I just called my guys in San Jose and I said, "Hey, I got a friend that really wants to go to a game. Can you help me out with some tickets?" He said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And I said, "It's the Wednesday game against Inter Miami." "Oh, sorry, we don't have any comps for that." There's no way we're letting you in for that. Or, even you would have to buy a ticket. I'm like, "Oh, all right. Well, so I mean, it is what it is. I mean, this is an entertainment league. We're still doing the same crap that we did in '96. We're just getting bigger names. You get Thierry Henry comes over here. The Lothar Matthäus has come over here to limp around for a while, and we, Donadoni was good for a bit. Campos was flash. I mean, Bob Bradley, when he got to Chicago, said, I'm not playing this guy. And then they won the whole thing. So people forget that. It was like, look, I get it that we want to entertain, and we have a lot of Mexican people that want to come watch Campos play, but I want to win. So Zach Thornton's my goalie, and they won the whole thing. And then a couple of years later was Blanco showed up, and he actually delivered. He was a great player, and the Mexican contingency was able to see one of their heroes. But that's not what this is about. We're having two different conversations. That the league is not better, and people just understand this. If you build a great stadium, right, and you have wonderful facilities, that does not create abilities.
Now, Eric, just to wrap things up for this episode about MLS, let's talk very quickly about promotion relegation, which is probably the hottest topic within MLS, the most controversial one, where some people, they hear that name, the allergies kick in, they start going crazy, they get angry, they hate it. And then there's some people that just also blindly support it without really understanding the overall implications of the good and the bad. Actually, I don't see much of a bad.
There's just a lot of ignorance on both sides. I mean,
it's blown out of proportion on both sides. But the thing with promotion relegation, before you even talk about it, I want to say one thing. USL is implementing promotion relegation, but they're not doing real pro rel of what we want. The real promotion relegation has to come from the federation, and it has to be an open pyramid, because USL is still close to USL. So it's promotion relegation within. Is it better than what MLS has? Of course, it's better, but it's not really.
Oh, they're still going to get it wrong. They're still going to get it wrong.
Yeah, that's the point.
And look, they're not going to change the schedule, and they're not going to figure out that the implications of not having weighted schedules. I mean, they're trying to.
You mean USL or MLS? Who are you talking about?
No, USL. USL. I mean, look, you went back to so Major League Soccer, and I've talked about this on my show Unleashed, that I sat with Don Garber when I was trying to change things with, as you mentioned, with the federation. The federation needs to work with the leagues to ensure growth and all of the things that are necessary for us to be a better soccer nation. There's a couple of things that I felt would be easy fixes. And the first thing that Don asked me, what would you change? And I said, I think it would be the best move, sir, if you figured out a way to make the change to the traditional calendar. And there's
Did
so
you
many.
actually say sir, though? Did you actually say sir?
I did.
Okay.
I am respectful to people who make decisions like that. But here's the good news: he doesn't make this decision anymore. Here we are, how many years removed from that scenario, and there was an independent study done with all of the ownership groups to say, okay, why are these numbers in the red? Why aren't we getting the visibility that we were promised? Why are our players getting injured? Why are we having to fire coaches because we keep losing players? Why? And all those answers can be, or solutions can be found through changing the schedule. Now that demands a couple of things: a schedule where everybody has to play against everybody, right? There can't be, we're going to play against Kansas City 3 times and we're never going to play San Jose and then determine a winner. I mean, it's like, it's just that some of the stuff. And when Don Garber said to me, it is impossible, that was what he said. I said, impossible? What is impossible? And he went into this 2-minute deliberation of the bullshit that he wanted me to believe. And I realized that he just doesn't get it. But here we are, this many years removed, and they did an independent study with the 30 teams, and 29 of them unanimously said, yes, they would be in favor of changing the schedule for all the reasons that I stated. And all of the just engaging in the business of football is one thing, but actually having a final that ends at a time where people will actually watch, and we can actually sell some commercial time as opposed to going up against the big boys, being back page news. I mean, it's just simple stuff. It's just pure logic. But sometimes people are so set in their ways, in their business plan, that they are not going to deviate. They're just going to keep running into that wall and ask why. I mean, you watch, USL is going to screw that up too. They're, as much as we'd like to say, wow, they're going to do promotion and relegation, they have people making the decisions about how this is supposed to be implemented who have no fucking idea how to do it. So what are you going to get? You're just going to get more mistakes at compiling day after, and then 10 years after that, they go, man, we probably should have done this and this and this. And then guys like me are like, well, I told you this 10 years ago. Maybe you should employ people who actually know how to implement this from the start, as opposed to going down a business plan checklist that's never going to work.
Do you
It's just not.
do you agree that if MLS, let's say MLS keeps expanding their franchises because they need to fund the operation, so they need to sell franchise. Let's say they expand to like 40, they keep going, and then they eventually make promotion relegation within MLS, right? My argument to that is that doesn't really change much because it's still just within. It's not an actual open pyramid. Do you think if MLS does that, they would be getting it right, or it would be kind of irrelevant if they just did a promotion relegation within MLS, only
They're
MLS?
already irrelevant when it comes to basing a champion on
So it'll
sporting pay.
continue to be. It'll continue to be if they do that.
Look, I don't think they will get past 32. I don't. I really don't. I mean, look at the other leagues. I mean, they've always looked at that as the model. So I mean, with the NHL, what do they got? 30.
I don't watch hockey.
I know,
It's a Canadian
you
thing.
got
It's a
baseball's
Canadian
got
thing.
32 or 30. The NFL's got 32. NBA's got 32. I mean, like that seems to be the push point of the franchise model. So, and if you don't deliver, then their answer to that is just move the franchise somewhere else to Precourt. I don't like Columbus anymore. I'm going to Austin. We just accept that. Can you imagine if we did that in Brazil?
You can't change the city.
Santos just said, "Hey, it's not working here. Let's."
Well, they tried. You
else.
didn't hear about it? They tried. So there was a time where so Santos is in the state of São Paulo, but it's actually not in the city of São Paulo. It's a little bit further away. They wanted to move Santos from Santos to the city of São Paulo because it's a bigger city, so you can make more money. And they didn't. The fans, everyone revolted.
Oh my God,
they couldn't do it. And that's just like not even changing the name or anything. It's just changing the location because there are more Santos fans apparently in the city of São Paulo than Santos, because the city of São Paulo is what, like a top five city in the world.
Angels, right? They had Mike Trout and Ohtani, and it was amazing. Like, oh my God, you got two of the best players in the world, but we're in Anaheim. Let's just change our name to LA. They're like, okay, why not? I mean, let's do that. I mean, and nobody blinked. I don't even think the stadium moved. It's just the same scenario. But look, I think if we really want to make this country better, if we really want to get to the crux of what's happening, I'm no longer screaming at the rain. I'm no longer trying to control things I can't control. The only thing I can control are the people around me and the room I'm in. That's it. And and I have a son and a daughter that are involved in this system. So, without putting, my son's, trajectory in the wrong hands, I'm going to do what I can about that. And does that mean that I'm right and you're wrong? Is there all these people who have been sold on the idea that MLS Next Pro is going to be the answer? I mean, it's called MLS Next for a reason. Those kids turn 20 and they go next, and then the next one comes in that they can try and celebrate. It's a rough look. And I know these guys. I mean, guys like Luis Robles, he runs the program. He's a good dude, man. He's trying so hard to make things better for our youth. A great example of this is the Generation Adidas Cup that was just down in Bradenton. I think LA and RSL, it was LA and RSL made it to the final. It was a battle of attrition. Any scout that wanted to scout those boys and say, I'm going to look. If you're going to go to that tournament, you're going to watch the kids in the first day, not the last day. I mean, they played 4 or 5 games in 6 days. Like, there's no way that game, that final, could be looked at and said, this is a high level. The kids were tapping out. They're playing not to get hurt, and they were probably at 60 to 70%. And RSL won because he just had more players. That's it. I still think LA Galaxy is a better team, but that's not the and they'll celebrate this, but you can't do this. See, you can't say, okay, Generation Adidas, U16s, whatever. We're gonna have this cup, and we're gonna watch the reaction after the end of the game. Watch it. Watch those kids run on the field. Watch how they act once they had the trophy. I know some of those kids at RSL. I know exactly where they come from and how hard they've worked and how hard they still continue to work. But when they got a chance to touch the trophy, it meant something to them. And now you have all these mechanisms that are being implemented that are telling the players that it doesn't matter if you win. We got a bunch of guys with computers that are going to evaluate whether you played well or not. Nobody's using their eyes. It's just a scary topic. a really scary
I
time.
remember when I was once with in the USMNT game, and I was with US Soccer, and there were some of their federation guys, and they were talking about how they were gonna change youth development in the US because they were gonna make this app, and I'm just like, what? What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
it's like everything is an
It's
app,
like
everything's a PowerPoint. It's never just like
it's like
hire the best people that know what they're doing and have them do it. Eric, look at this. Orlando City.
let
You
me let
talked
me ask
about
you this. Let me ask you this. Like okay, like I don't care what if you go to Carl's Jr. or Burger King or McDonald's. Eventually, like this is the way it'll be. Some AI is going to take over, and you won't need to have any conversation and or interaction with a human being. And some machine is going to hand you your burger how you ordered it perfectly because machines are better than humans. It just takes out every aspect of why you might be going to that restaurant in the first place. That the way that they say hi, how you doing? Hope you have a great day, sir. I mean, all those little things. It's kind of what we're doing. I've said this before about how we do things in America and how they do things different in other parts of the world. Imagine if I told you that if you're going to work for me, let's say I got a company and I hire you. Okay, now you're a part of my team.
what's the salary?
Okay, doesn't matter. But let's say it's $250,000.
I'll take the job.
Okay, great. So now you work for me. Now I pull you into my office and I say, listen, you're doing a great job, but we don't like your laugh. So I need you to change that. You're no longer, allowed to laugh the way you laugh. Okay, are we good? So let's figure out what your new laugh sounds like, and let's do that. Can you imagine because that's what soccer is in this country. We have a bunch of coaches that basically are telling kids, I don't like the way you do this. I don't like the personality that you have. I don't like the way you play the game. You got to play the game my way. Two things happen in that scenario. One, you have to think before you react to anything because, oh God, I'm not supposed to laugh like that. I can't, they told me not to laugh. So how do I laugh? It's over. And that's how about 95 to 98% of our players play. They play without personality because they've been told not to have a personality or to even think for themselves. And that's a huge problem, man. That is a massive problem. The Germans don't do that. The Italians don't do that. They identify the strengths and weaknesses early, and then they grow from there. And they love your laugh. They deal with your laugh. That's because they know what they're doing. And we are so busy trying to change it, to your point, to change the game with an app. Come on.
I literally heard that. So, I mean, whatever.
It's not the craziest thing I've heard from these guys. These guys are geniuses. Don't forget, they're geniuses.
Yeah, we're the dumbasses. But anyhow, everyone, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I know we talked about a lot of things. We were all over the place with MLS, youth development, promotion relegation.
Let's just do a part two. We'll do a part two next week after everybody reacts. How's that?
We'll do more. We'll do many more recordings. Eventually, I'll be on your show too at some point.
We got to work that out. I mean, hey, this is the studio, so I mean, there it is. If you want to
Unleashed at Ghost
TV.
TV.
See that? Oh, I have to move my head. If I move my head, the camera follows me everywhere I go. So
sometimes,
you don't
yeah.
need to see that.
Sometimes.
There you go.
Not falling now. But everyone, thank you very much for watching. Part 2 of this interview will come out a few days after, but it'll be mainly focused on the U.S. men's national team and some interesting comments from Bruce Arena. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.